What's going on, guys? Waco from Revolution here with Tim Strager, the founder and co-CEO of Chrono24. How are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. So your first reflections on Dubai Watch Week, what are you thinking?
To be honest, it's my first time here, and I really, really like it. It's super relaxed. People are very approachable. It's not too big, not too small. A lot of people are here. I had a fantastic time and still have.
One of the things that I really like about this fair is it's a great kind of cultural initiative, right? It's really looking at building a greater and greater audience for watches. But I would have to say that to some degree, Chrono24 has also helped build the audience for watches in a huge way, right? And that's because using Chrono24, everyone now has a perception of the secondary value of their watches. Would you agree with that, sir?
I definitely do agree. And I mean, we're doing this now for 20 years. Chrono24 is 20 years old, or turned 20 years old this year. And we're trying to bring buyers and sellers together and help them give all the information on finding the right watch at the right price from the right seller, at the right location. It's been a great journey over the last 20 years.
What a journey it's been. Congratulations also on your most recent investor. If I'm not mistaken, Cristiano Ronaldo has recently invested in the company. Can you tell me a little bit about how that came about?
I mean, we have a lot of shareholders as of today, and we have shareholders from the watch industry. We have shareholders from private equity that really understand marketplaces. And then this has already been a while ago. We decided, hey, why not bringing in also some shareholders who, like us, have a deep passion into watches and can also help us to even build trust among our users, so people that share that passion with us. And then we thought about big names, and obviously Cristiano Ronaldo is known as a watch collector. He has more than 100 watches. He was the number one on our list, and then luckily one of our shareholders had a potential to make an intro, and then we got an intro to his management, talked to his management, and they said, oh, this sounds super interesting. We think that Cristiano might like it, and then they suggested it to Cristiano, and then we didn't hear anything back. So I even was like, okay, this deal will not happen. And then after 2-3 months, we got a call. It's like, yeah, Cristiano looked at it. He likes the category, he likes the platform, and he'd be super happy to invest.
That's phenomenal, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you don't mind my asking, what was the last valuation for the company at the last round of investment?
The last major round that we did was in 2021, and we announced the valuation that at that time it was more than $1 billion. We were lucky that we did not need to raise further capital since then. I mean, we brought in Cristiano, but the key reason was not here to increase the capital. So the valuation was less relevant in that round. But 2 years ago, we were happy to finally join the group of unicorn companies.
Fantastic, man.
I do not know what the valuation is today. I mean, we all know that tech multiples have gone down,
right.
And since then,
multiples
revenue
of everything.
I mean, revenue since then has gone up significantly.
Fantastic.
But we are in a lucky situation that we do not need to evaluate the value of the company on a daily basis. So.
Okay, so if this was a Marvel superhero movie, tell me the origin story. Like, how did Tim say, you know what, I want to revolutionize the watch world by creating Chrono24?
Yeah, I come from an entrepreneurial family, and even both of my parents come from entrepreneurial families. So it was clear to me that I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And then even in my young ages, I always had a thing for mechanics, fine mechanics, spent a lot of time building model airplanes, radio-controlled cars, spent a lot of time with the Lego technique, and always liked this mechanic. And then when I was a little bit older, 15-ish, 16-ish, I realized that you can also put super fascinating fine mechanics on your wrist. And then when I started my entrepreneurial journey after university, I also got fascinated by the concept of marketplaces. I always liked this concept of giving buyers and sellers who might not have the deepest insight in a category the trust and the transparency that they can buy a watch or even a car or real estate like before only professionals could do. And helping people to democratize a category and helping them to buy like a professional was always a fascinating concept to me. And then after a few entrepreneurial tries and failures and successes, I thought, okay, on my next one, I'll focus not on economic success, I'll focus on just doing something that'll be a lot of fun. So working with great people and picking a great category. And to me, that was watches. So I'm in a lucky situation that I could put three of my passions together: marketplaces, watches, and also being an entrepreneur. And especially at the beginning, this was a very, very entrepreneurial journey. I mean, now Chrono24 is bigger. We're now around 500 people. And the company has obviously changed over the last 10 plus years, but it's still great fun. And I think it's a company that still has a lot to do. And it still feels we're just at the beginning.
You know, I think one of the game changers for the marketplace that's represented by Chrono24 was the whole idea of the money being held in escrow until like the person who receives the watch was happy with it, and then it was released eventually. You know, when did you come up with this safety mechanism?
I mean, as I said in the beginning, it was important for us to give people that don't have the experience, that don't know all the dealers worldwide, the same level of safety and trust that before only maybe someone like you has. You know dealers all around the world, but a lot of people don't. And then we were thinking of different mechanisms of building that trust and giving our buyers and sellers the security and authenticating and touching every single watch, given that 70% of our transactions are cross-border, was like too complicated for us. There were a lot of VAT and tax and tariffs issues, so we decided let's keep the money in escrow at the beginning and not only the watch. We're now thinking about expanding that, and we have introduced an authentication service where we can also authenticate the watch, but escrowing the money was our first step, and it was a huge game changer for buyers and sellers. All of a sudden, many of our sellers had the potential to reach a global audience, which they couldn't do before. And also our buyers were like, well, now I'm completely relaxed and feel trusted and safe to buy a watch from around the globe from a person I've never met before.
You know, watches have exploded in popularity, in particular in the last couple of years, right? Part of that is because I think they really come to be part of the whole lifestyle world, right? You know, they represent kind of the nexus of everything that's kind of cool, cars, culture, art, music, everything. And I can't think of an NBA star or a rapper or a movie star that doesn't have a watch on his wrist today. When you look at a red carpet, like everyone has a cool watch, right? I think the other part of that also is that everyone now has an understanding of the secondary values of their watches. So this is a two-part question. First, why are watches so popular? And second of all, do you feel the fact that people understand what their watch is worth also help for watches to become popular?
Yeah, I mean, the first questions, you pretty much answered it. I mean, watches has really become a mainstream media phenomenon among social media rappers. You see them a lot, and even in the last 2-3 years, when I go to parties or meeting people, I'm asked a lot more about what should I buy, what should I sell, what's the fair value of watches than 10 years ago.
Right.
And I think media, social media, pop culture has helped a lot. And given that there was so much demand, which increased the prices of watches, given that the supply is constrained, that drove the prices up. And we all know what happens when prices are going up. The desire to get something like that is even bigger. Right. So that put a spiral in work that drove prices up and created even more desirability. And I think this is something what we saw over the last 3-4 years. And then it peaked, as we all know. Right. Some watches reached prices that were unreasonably high. And I think it's now just fair and good that the market is now softening and correcting. And now it seems that we have seen the trough, and few brands still decline a little bit, but many brands have even stabilized or even increasing again. So the overall index, and we just introduced our own index that is purely based on transaction data. I think that gives a very reliable and fair view of what is happening in the market right now.
I love the fact that you guys have introduced an index, because I think that was something that collectors had always said. Why isn't there kind of like an almost real-time index that you would like for the commodities or whatever, that's explaining to you the secondary price of watches, and you've now created one that's actually based on transactions then, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing 30,000 actual transactions happening on our platform per month. We have a super interesting feature on our platform where you can put your collection into a virtual collection. So we help you to track the value of your collection. And here also our users add watches to the collection and include the price points. So there's a lot of data points. We put 4.6 million data points into this index, ChronoPulse, that we just introduced. It's free of charge, available to everybody on our website and in our app. And I think it gives a great overview, and it helps to make the right decision whether to buy or sell a watch.
Now that we can agree that the market has declined, it's probably a pretty good opportunity for buying. As the guy that has the greatest access to the greatest amount of information on secondary transactions, what are 3 watches that you would pick?
I'm currently looking at an Aquanaut.
Nice.
But I haven't pressed the button yet.
Okay.
I was just in Geneva last week, and I saw the Freak from revolutionized, which
Uh-huh.
I thought is an interesting one,
That's a
having
great watch.
no crown, no pointers, and so it's an interesting, maybe not so mainstream piece that I like a lot. So
it's a good watch for an entrepreneur, right? Because it's a watch. It's a game changer, right? That's a watch where the movement's actually telling time. And,
yeah, that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, very cool. I also like the fact that Chrono24 has also tried to become an educator to some degree. You've also made an investment in some media. Can you talk a little bit about that too? Or?
Yeah, so we have a magazine on our platform and try to help our users to also educate themselves about watches. And we are happy shareholders with fratello.com, probably one of the most renowned blog in watches. And yeah, I love to consume the content from both sources.
You mentioned in the beginning that this is something that you're driven by passion, and you really are a watch nerd. Tell us about the watch on your wrist.
Yeah, I mean, Chrono24 is a very global company. We have offices in Tokyo, Miami, Hong Kong, and I'm not really good at time zones. So I picked the overseas here dual time so that I can track different time zones, and I stop waking up people in the middle of the night by calling them. And another thing is we just published a study where we looked at in what order do people put their watches into their watch collections. So what is a typical first watch in your collection? What is a watch that's rather bought in the middle of your collecting? And what is something that you rather add at the very end? And for example, when we just look at the bigger brands, Tag Heuer is one of the brands that is very often, or is a lot more likely to be bought at the first watch in a collection and a lot less at the end. And Rolex is another interesting example. So the likelihood to buy a Rolex is very constant on your first purchase, but also on your 10th or later purchase. The likelihood is always pretty much the same. And Vacheron, what I'm wearing, and I think you as well here, is from the bigger brands, the one that is most likely to be purchased at the end of a collection versus at the beginning. And in these days, we know there's a lot of economic uncertainty. Silent luxury is getting more and more a trend. And in watches, probably Vacheron could be a prime example for silent luxury. So that's also one reason why I like this one a lot right now and wear it a lot.
That's a very good reason. Okay, let me ask you this. You know, it's clear that you're really passionate about watches. You've created a platform that has been really a game changer for consumers and smaller businesses, small and large businesses around the world. But because it's related to what people perceive to be secondary, do you sometimes feel as if it doesn't get the respect that it should?
Getting more respect always helps. When I talk to our users, our collectors on our platform, I think it gets a lot of respect. Would I wish to get also more respect from the primary watch market? Yes, I do, but maybe there's also a little bit of conflict of interest because, I mean, especially in recent years, you had often 2, 3, sometimes 10 years of waiting until you can get your watch. And on Chrono24, you could get it the very next day. And I do understand that that might feel frustrated for, let's say, an authorized dealer who would love to sell more, but cannot get the supply. And also, if there is enough supply, then sometimes prices on Chrono24 are a lot more competitive and really represent the market price more than the prices in a store. And I also do understand that maybe some brands view that as conflicting interests. But when I talk to people, especially here, and I talked to a lot of CEOs here, I think there was a lot of mutual respect.
Tim, you're a cool guy. I hope we can get a beer sometime. It was a pleasure talking to you, sir.
Thank you. I really liked it.
Cheers. Cheers.